Imagine a time when the only light in the darkness came from the stars scattered across the night sky. Long before city lights washed out the heavens, ancient civilizations gazed upward, searching for meaning in those shimmering patterns. They saw more than just distant suns. They saw stories, guidance, and secrets etched into the cosmos. Among these celestial tales, one of the most enduring mysteries is the symbolism of the ancient zodiacs. These weren't just constellations, they were maps of human experience encoded with wisdom that has captivated minds for thousands of years. From the banks of the Euphrates to the temples of Egypt, our ancestors looked to the stars not only to mark the seasons but to understand their place in the universe. Tonight, we're going to unravel some of those mysteries together. Picture yourself curled up, ready for a journey into the past, where every symbol tells a story and every constellation holds a clue. What did the Babylonians see in the fierce lion of Leo? Why did the Greeks weave myths of heroes and monsters into the starry tapestry? And how have these ancient symbols persisted, whispering their secrets across centuries? This isn't just about astronomy, it's a historical detective story, one that connects us to the dreams and fears of those who came long before us. As we explore these age-old mysteries, you'll discover how the zodiac served as a mirror for human emotions, ambitions, and beliefs. We'll decode the hidden meanings behind familiar signs and uncover why these celestial symbols still resonate with us today. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's embark on this adventure into the heart of one of history's greatest puzzles, the ancient zodiac. Together, we'll piece together clues from the past and see the night sky through the eyes of those who first read its stories. Our story begins in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where some of humanity's first great civilizations took root. It was here, over 3,000 years ago, that Babylonian sky watchers laid the very foundations of the zodiac we recognize today. These early astronomers were not merely stargazers, they were meticulous scholars and priests serving as the bridge between the earthly and the divine. Their primary motivation was deeply practical, rooted in the rhythm of agriculture and the administration of a vast empire. They needed a reliable calendar to predict the annual flooding of the rivers, which was essential for planting and harvesting crops. By carefully tracking the movements of the sun, moon, and planets against the backdrop of fixed stars, they began to notice consistent patterns. They saw that the sun's path, which they called the ecliptic, passed through specific groupings of stars. Over centuries of observation, they divided this celestial highway into 12 equal sections, each 30 degrees wide, creating a brilliant and durable system for measuring time. This was the birth of the 12-sign zodiac, but the Babylonians saw far more than a clock in the sky. Each section of their zodiac was associated with a constellation that rose just before the sun at different times of the year, a phenomenon known as a heliacal rising. These constellations became powerful symbols, deeply intertwined with their rich mythology and their understanding of the god's will. For instance, the constellation they named Amuel. A pin, or the heavenly bull, which we know as Taurus, was linked to the spring equinox and the beginning of the agricultural year. Its appearance signaled the time to plow the fields, and its symbolic strength and fertility were woven into their creation myths. Similarly, the constellation we call Leo was known as Gu, La, the great lion, a fearsome creature associated with their warrior gods and the intense heat of the summer sun. These connections were not arbitrary. They were a sophisticated language of symbols that reflected the world these people lived in, a world dependent on the seasons, the land, and the favor of the gods. This celestial knowledge was considered so vital that it was reserved for the elite, the scribes and priests who could decipher the omens. They believed the gods communicated their intentions through celestial events, and a planetary alignment within a specific zodiacal sign was a message to be interpreted. A comet passing through the section of the scales might portend a need for justice or a shift in power, while Mars glowing brightly in the twins could warn of conflict between brothers or neighboring states. This practice, known as astrolomnology, was the precursor to modern astrology. The Babylonian system, with its 12 signs and their embedded symbolism, did not remain hidden in temple libraries for long. Through trade, conquest, and cultural exchange, this knowledge spread west into Egypt and Greece, where it would be adapted, renamed, and infused with new myths. Yet the core structure, the 12-fold division of the ecliptic and its connection to human affairs, remains a direct legacy from those ancient Mesopotamian scholars who first looked up and dared to map the heavens. While the Babylonians were developing their sophisticated system of celestial omens, another great civilization was forging its own profound relationship with the stars. To truly grasp the depth of ancient zodiacal symbolism, we must travel to the banks of the Nile and step inside a breathtaking temple that has preserved this cosmic conversation for over 2,000 years. The ceiling of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera is not merely stone and plaster. It is a frozen moment in time, a detailed map of the heavens as the ancient Egyptians understood it. This magnificent bas-relief, now known as the Dendera Zodiac, is one of the most complete and informative astronomical charts to survive from antiquity. Unlike the Babylonian system, which was primarily recorded on fragile clay tablets, the Egyptians carved their celestial knowledge into the very architecture of their sacred spaces, ensuring its survival for millennia. This stunning artifact offers us a direct window into how Egyptian priests seamlessly wove together astronomy, mythology, and the rhythm of daily life. What makes the Dendera Zodiac so fascinating is its unique blend of familiar and alien imagery. At first glance, you might recognize some of the same constellations we know today: a bull for Taurus, a lion for Leo, a pair of fish for Pisces. This reveals the incredible cultural exchange happening across the ancient world, as Greek and Babylonian ideas filtered into Egypt, particularly during the Ptolemaic period when the temple was constructed. But look closer, and you'll see a deeply Egyptian interpretation layered on top of this international system. The constellations are not just animals, they are deities and symbols from their own rich pantheon. The sky is depicted as a disk held up by the 4 pillars of the world, represented by goddesses, while the 36 decans, star groups used to tell time at night, encircle the main figures. This wasn't just a scientific chart, it was a spiritual blueprint. The priests of Hathor used this map to synchronize their elaborate religious festivals with celestial events, believing that the movements of the stars were the physical manifestations of their gods' actions. The central figure, often interpreted as the constellation we call Taurus, is shown as a bull, but this is no ordinary creature. It is closely associated with the goddess Hathor herself, the deity of the temple, who was often depicted as a cow representing fertility and the heavens. The positioning of the sun and planets within these celestial figures was used to determine the most auspicious times for everything from coronations to harvests. For instance, the heliacal rising of Sirius, which the Egyptians called Sopdet and we know as the dog star, was the most important celestial event of their year. Its first appearance just before dawn after a period of invisibility coincided with the annual flooding of the Nile, the lifeblood of their civilization. This event was not just a practical marker, it was a moment of immense religious significance, symbolizing the resurrection of the god Osiris and the renewal of all life. The Dendera Zodiac served as a complex calculator for predicting such events, embedding the practical necessity of a calendar within a profound cosmological narrative. Surviving for centuries in the dark, sealed chambers of the temple, the ceiling was largely protected from the elements until its controversial removal in the 1820s, when it was transported to Paris, where it now resides in the Louvre. Its detailed imagery has allowed modern scholars to accurately date its creation to between 50 and 20 B.C. by calculating the precise positions of the planets depicted. This artifact stands as a powerful testament to a culture that saw no separation between science and spirit. For the Egyptians, to study the stars was to commune with the divine, to participate in the eternal cycles of death and rebirth played out in the cosmos above. The Dendera zodiac is more than an ancient map. It is a profound statement about humanity's place in a universe alive with meaning, a beautiful and complex language of symbols that connected their daily lives directly to the eternal dance of the heavens. The Babylonian system of celestial omens was a monumental achievement, but its journey was far from over. As this knowledge traveled westward across trade routes and through the conquests of Alexander the Great, it found a new home in the vibrant intellectual world of ancient Greece. The Greeks, with their passion for philosophy and their rich pantheon of gods and heroes, did not merely adopt the zodiac, they transformed it, infusing it with a new layer of meaning that would shape its interpretation for the next 2,000 years. Where the Babylonians saw messages from the gods about events affecting the state wars, famines, and the fate of kings, the Greek mind turned inward. They began to ask a profoundly different question. If the stars can foretell the destiny of empires, could they also map the inner landscape of the individual human soul? This shift from collective destiny to personal character was a revolutionary step, and it was largely codified by one of the most influential scientific minds in history, Claudius Ptolemy. Ptolemy, working in the Great Library of Alexandria in the 2nd century CE, was a synthesizer of knowledge on an epic scale. His work, the Almagest, meticulously detailed the mathematical movements of the planets, solidifying the geocentric model of the universe. But it was his second great work, the Tetrabiblos, or 4 books, that laid the definitive foundation for Western astrology as we would come to know it. In this text, Ptolemy took the existing framework of the Babylonian zodiac and systematically wove it into the fabric of Greek natural philosophy. He argued that while the Almagest described the mechanics of the heavens, the Tetrabiblos explored the physics of their influence. His core premise was based on the widely accepted concept of cosmic sympathy, the idea that everything in the cosmos is interconnected, and that the celestial bodies, through their light, motion, and inherent qualities, exerted a tangible influence on the earth and everything on it, including human temperament. This is where Ptolemy's genius for systemization truly shone. He didn't just list omens, he created a complex, interlocking web of associations for each zodiac sign. He assigned them not only planetary rulers but also elemental qualities: earth, air, fire, and water, and essential natures like hot, cold, moist, and dry. Aries, ruled by the aggressive planet Mars and of the fiery element, was thus associated with a bold, impulsive, and courageous character. Taurus, an earth sign ruled by the sensual Venus, was linked to a patient, reliable, and pleasure-loving nature. Ptolemy went even further, detailing how the sun's position in a sign at the time of birth would shape one's general disposition, while the moon and rising sign would modify it. He connected signs to parts of the human body, creating the concept of the anatomical zodiac, where Aries ruled the head and Pisces ruled the feet. This wasn't random superstition. It was presented as a rational, almost scientific system of understanding human variety through the lens of the cosmos. The philosophical underpinning of this entire system was the Greek maxim, "as above, so below," a belief in a harmonious and ordered universe where the macrocosm of the heavens was reflected in the microcosm of the individual. This gave the zodiac a new depth and purpose. It was no longer just a tool for priests to predict floods or warn kings. It became a guide for self-knowledge. A person could look to their natal chart to understand their innate strengths, their hidden challenges, and their potential place within the natural order. The Greek myths attached to the constellations, the story of the twins Castor and Pollux for Gemini, the mighty Hercules for the Nila constellation, added a layer of narrative psychology, giving each sign an archetypal story to embody. Through Ptolemy's work, the zodiac completed its evolution from a calendar of earthly events to a mirror for the human psyche, a symbolic language that promised to unlock the mysteries of individual character, a legacy that continues to captivate us to this very day. While the Mediterranean world was mapping the human psyche onto the stars, a parallel and equally sophisticated system was flourishing in the East, one that reflected a completely different worldview. The Chinese zodiac, known as Shengzhou, is often presented in the West simply as a cycle of 12 charming animals, but to see it that way is to miss its profound depth. This system is not a collection of Greek myths or psychological archetypes. It is a mirror of the cosmos as an immense, perfectly ordered imperial court, a celestial bureaucracy where every animal official has a role and a responsibility. The foundation of this system rests on a 12-year cycle, with each year assigned an animal: rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, and pig. But the animal itself is only the beginning. Its true character is shaped by one of 5 rotating elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, creating a 60-year cycle that is the heart of the traditional Chinese calendar. This intricate structure is a direct reflection of the Confucian values that ordered Chinese society for millennia. Where the Western zodiac explores the individual's inner nature, the Chinese system is deeply concerned with one's place within the family and the state. The animals are not merely symbols, they are celestial mandarins, each possessing specific virtues, flaws, and assigned duties that contribute to the harmonious functioning of the universe. The diligent ox embodies the peasant farmer, the backbone of the agricultural society, valued for its strength, reliability, and patience. The majestic dragon is not a monster to be slain, but a benevolent and powerful imperial symbol representing the emperor himself, a bringer of rain, good fortune, and authority. Even the clever rat, often viewed negatively in the West, is admired for its wit, charm, and resourcefulness, having earned first place in the legendary race that determined the zodiac order. The interplay of elements adds another layer of bureaucratic precision. A wood dragon, for instance, is seen as more creative and idealistic, while a fire dragon is more assertive and domineering. This creates a complex taxonomy of personalities, not for personal introspection alone, but to understand how one best fits into the social hierarchy and fulfills one's duty. Your zodiac sign was less about who you are and more about what you are meant to do within the greater collective. The system provided a framework for understanding social harmony, predicting compatibility in marriage and business partnerships, and even guiding statecraft. The emperor's astrologers would meticulously chart the heavenly movements, interpreting them as edicts and memos from the celestial court, signaling when to plant crops, when to go to war, or when the emperor needed to perform rituals to maintain the mandate of heaven. This celestial metaphor of a flawless bureaucracy offered a powerful sense of order and meaning. It presented a universe that was not chaotic or indifferent but meticulously administered, where every event, from a drought to the birth of a child, was part of a grand, interlocking system of relationships and responsibilities. The enduring popularity of the Chinese zodiac, especially during the Lunar New Year, is a testament to this deep cultural framework. It is a language that connects the individual to the family, the community, and the cosmos itself, reinforcing the timeless values of harmony, duty, and respect for the intricate and ordered roles we all play within the vast, imperially decorated court of existence. Yet another distinct interpretation of the heavens emerges when we turn to the sophisticated traditions of ancient India, where the focus shifts from the sun's path to the intimate dance of the moon. The Vedic system of nakshatras, or lunar mansions, presents a cosmology of breathtaking complexity and spiritual depth. Unlike the Western zodiac's 12 equal divisions of the sun's annual journey, the nakshatras consist of 27 precise segments along the moon's monthly path around the Earth. Each of these sections is a distinct celestial neighborhood, anchored by a specific star or star cluster, and each is imbued with a unique personality, mythology, and purpose that guides every aspect of life, from the most mundane daily task to the soul's ultimate spiritual liberation. To understand the nakshatras is to understand the rhythm of time itself in Vedic thought. The moon spends approximately 1 day in each nakshatra, completing its cycle through all 27 in about 27.3 days. This creates a celestial calendar of remarkable granularity, where each day carries a specific energetic signature dictated by its presiding lunar mansion. The system is far more nuanced than simply having 27 signs. It is a multi-layered symbolic language. Each nakshatra is governed by a Vedic deity, ruling planet, and possesses a specific symbol, a power or Shakti, and even a motivating aim in life, ranging from dharma duty to moksha liberation. For instance, the first nakshatra, Ashwini, is ruled by the Ashwini Kumaras, the divine twin physicians of the gods. Its symbol is a horse's head, representing incredible speed and healing energy, and its primary motivation is dharma, the path of righteous action. A person born under this nakshatra is believed to be a natural healer, quick-thinking, and blessed with a pioneering spirit. The connection to Hindu mythology is not merely decorative, it is the very essence of each nakshatra's identity. The stories of the gods and demons, sages and kings are encoded directly into the stars, offering a rich tapestry of archetypal narratives. Consider Rohini, one of the most cherished nakshatras, symbolized by a cart or chariot and ruled by Prajapati, the creator god. Its primary mythology centers on the moon god, Chandra, who had 27 wives, the nakshatras themselves, but his favorite was Rohini. His neglect of the others led to a curse that caused the moon to wax and wane, directly linking this celestial story to the observable lunar cycle. Consequently, Rohini is associated with growth, fertility, and beauty, but also with the challenges of desire and attachment. This deep narrative layer provides a psychological and spiritual framework far more intricate than simply being a Taurus in the Western system, which only shares a portion of its sky. This system moves far beyond personality analysis into the realm of practical and spiritual application. Vedic astrologers or Jyotishis use the nakshatras for muhurta, the election of auspicious timings. Launching a new business, getting married, or even starting a journey would be planned for a time when the moon is in a nakshatra whose energy supports that specific endeavor. Perhaps Uttara Falguni for fostering partnership and patronage, or Purva Bhadrapada for initiating transformative spiritual practices. The nakshatra occupied by the moon at the moment of one's birth, known as the Janma nakshatra, is considered a key to the soul's innate nature and life purpose. It is a system that sees human life not as separate from the cosmos, but as a direct, intimate participant in its endless, rhythmic dance, offering a detailed map for aligning an individual's actions with the very pulse of the universe. Far across the Atlantic, in the dense rainforests of Mesoamerica, the Maya civilization developed a relationship with the cosmos that was both mathematically precise and profoundly spiritual, creating a system of time that stands as one of humanity's most stunning intellectual achievements. Theirs was a world where time itself was a sacred force, a divine energy that flowed in intricate, predictable cycles, and to track it was to participate in the very order of the universe. Unlike the old world systems that primarily divided the sun or moon's path, the Maya crafted a complex interlocking of multiple calendars, each serving a distinct purpose. The two most critical for understanding their celestial view were the Tzolk'in, the 260-day sacred round, and the Hab, the 365-day solar year. But it is within a third, even grander cycle, the long count, that we find their true zodiacal counterpart and their most awe-inspiring prophecies woven into the fabric of the stars. The Maya did not have a zodiac of 12 signs in the Western sense. Instead, they had a celestial zoo of powerful animal patrons and deities that governed periods of time and influenced human destiny. These were not simply constellations as patterns of stars, but powerful realms inhabited by gods. The most prominent of these were the 13 signs of the Maya zodiac, which were actually segments of the ecliptic associated with the Wayub, the animal spirit companions or co-essences of both gods and people. When a child was born, the day in the sacred Tzolk'in calendar determined their particular way, a lifelong spiritual guide that shaped their character and fate. A birth on a day ruled by the jaguar or Ix bestowed qualities of power, stealth, and a connection to the underworld. A day governed by the monkey or Chuan indicated a creative, clever, and artistic individual. This system deeply connected each person to the animating spirit of the cosmos, making the sky a direct reflection of earthly and spiritual life. This celestial knowledge was the exclusive domain of the priest astronomers, the Ilhuika Tenatiyuk, who meticulously observed the heavens from towering stone observatories like the Caracol at Chichen Itza. Their predictions were not mere superstition. They were based on centuries of precise observation, allowing them to calculate the movements of Venus with an accuracy unmatched until the Renaissance. The heliacal rising of Venus as the morning star was considered an event of immense portent, often associated with the outbreak of war. Maya kings would meticulously time their military campaigns to coincide with this celestial event, believing the god of war, Chak-Ek, was lending them his power. Similarly, the movements of the Pleiades star cluster, which they saw as a rattlesnake's tail, were crucial for agriculture. Its disappearance in the spring signaled the beginning of the planting season, while its reappearance later in the year marked the time to harvest. The heavens were a divine clock, and every tick and tock dictated the rhythm of life, from when to sow maize to when to crown a new divine king. The ultimate expression of this belief was the infamous end date of the 13th Bacton cycle in the long count calendar, which corresponded to December 21, 2012. Modern pop culture sensationalized this as a prophecy of global apocalypse, but Maya scholars understand it was something far more nuanced and profound. To the Maya, this was not an end, but a rare moment of cosmic renewal, a completion of a grand cycle of approximately 5,125 years. They saw time as cyclical, not linear, just as the Hob and Tzolk'in calendars realigned every 52 years in a period known as the calendar round, a time of great anxiety and potential renewal. The completion of a long count cycle represented a moment of monumental transformation when the old world age would be washed away and a new one conceived. It was a return to a sacred starting point, a rebirth of time itself, demanding not fear, but ritual and reverence to ensure the sun would continue its journey and the cosmos would maintain its delicate, divine balance. Beneath the rich tapestry of myths and animal symbols lies a hidden layer of astonishing mathematical precision, a universal language of numbers that connects these ancient systems across vast distances of time and culture. This isn't a coincidence, it's a reflection of humanity's shared effort to measure the cosmos and find order in the heavens. The most pervasive of these numbers is 12, the foundational pillar of the Western zodiac. This choice was not arbitrary but was deeply rooted in the most fundamental cycles our ancestors could observe. The lunar cycle from one new moon to the next takes about 29.5 days. Over the course of one solar year, which is approximately 365 days, the moon completes this cycle roughly 12.4 times. This close approximation of 12 lunar months in a solar year provided a natural, elegant way to divide the year, creating a lunisolar calendar that synchronized the rhythms of the moon with the seasons of the sun. But the significance of 12 extends far beyond simple lunar counting. As the Babylonian astronomers meticulously tracked the sun's path, they divided the circle of the ecliptic into 360 degrees. Why 360? This number is profoundly practical as it is divisible by a vast number of integers. by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, and so on. This made complex astronomical calculations and the creation of calendars infinitely easier in a world without decimals or calculators. Dividing this 360-degree circle by 12 results in the 30-degree segments that define each zodiac sign. This mathematical harmony between the circle, the year, and the number 12 created a perfectly balanced system, a celestial clockwork that resonated with a sense of divine order. This concept of the circle as a perfect shape and its division into 360 degrees became a cornerstone not just of astronomy, but of sacred geometry, influencing architecture, art, and religious thought for millennia. This fascination with celestial mathematics wasn't confined to Mesopotamia. We see a magnificent expression of it in the Vedic system with its 27 nakshatras. The moon's sidereal period, the time it takes to return to the same position against the fixed stars, is about 27.3 days. The ancient Jyotishis rounded this to 27, creating a system where the moon visits one nakshatra each night. 27 multiplied by its divisional 4 padas or quarters gives us 108, a number of immense sacred power in dharmic traditions. There are 108 beads in a mala prayer necklace, 108 names for deities, and 108 points defining the sacred Sri Yantra geometric diagram. Here, the zodiac is not just a map of the sky, but a numerical key to spiritual practice. Even the Maya, separated by an ocean, were obsessed with sacred numerical cycles. Their 260-day Tzolk'in calendar is the product of 20-day signs interacting with 13 numerals, a cycle that was more sacred than practical, believed to govern the fortune of each day. Meanwhile, their 365-day Hob solar calendar mirrors the Babylonian 360-degree circle, with 18 20-day months plus a brief, unlucky 5-day period to complete the year. The way these two independent calendars meshed, realigning every 52 years in the calendar round, reveals a culture that saw time itself as a series of interlocking gears in a grand divine machine. The precision with which they calculated the 584-day cycle of Venus, with an error of just 2 hours over 500 years, shows a mathematical sophistication that was arguably unmatched in the ancient world. From the 12-fold division of Babylon to the 27 mansions of India and the complex cycles of Mesoamerica, these systems all reveal a universal human truth that in the silent, predictable language of mathematics, our ancestors found both a practical tool and a profound echo of the cosmos's hidden, sacred order. But how did these distinct celestial systems, born worlds apart, come to share such strikingly similar characters? The hero, the virgin, the serpent, the twins. The answer lies in one of humanity's most powerful psychological tools, the archetype. These ancient cultures were not copying one another. They were independently projecting their deepest myths, their most powerful gods, and their fundamental human experiences onto the starry canvas above, creating a cast of universal characters that have captivated us for millennia. A constellation was never just a picture, it was a story frozen in time, a divine narrative written in light, and these stories reveal a shared human language of symbols that transcends any single culture. Consider the archetype of the hero, a figure who triumphs over chaos and brings order. In the Greek tradition, this is Hercules, the demigod son of Zeus who performed 12 impossible labors. After his death, he was granted immortality and placed in the sky as a constellation, forever kneeling with his club raised, a permanent reminder of strength and the reward for virtue. Now journey to ancient Mesopotamia. There, in the same patch of sky, the Babylonians saw not Hercules, but their own primordial hero, Gilgamesh. He was the legendary king of Uruk who embarked on a perilous quest for immortality after the death of his friend Enkidu. While Gilgamesh ultimately failed to secure eternal life for himself, his story of confronting mortality and seeking meaning became immortalized in the stars. Two different heroes from two different cultures, both etched into the same celestial territory, teaching the same lesson about the human struggle against limitation. The Celestial Virgin is another powerful cross-cultural archetype. For the Greeks, she is Virgo, often associated with the goddess Astrea, the immortal spirit of justice. As mythology tells it, Astrea lived among humans during the peaceful Golden Age, but fled to the heavens to become the constellation Virgo during the corrupt Iron Age, disgusted by humanity's wickedness. She holds the scales of justice, which became the neighboring constellation Libra, representing the balance and order she left behind. Half a world away, the Maya saw a similar figure of purity and sustenance in their moon goddess. She is often depicted as a young woman pouring water from a jar, a symbol of life and nourishment closely tied to the cycles of growth and the fertility of the land. Though their stories differ, both visions of the Virgin in the sky represent an idealized state of innocence, justice, and divine provision, a paradise lost but still visible, shining down as a promise and a reminder. Perhaps the most pervasive archetype of all is the serpent, a symbol of duality representing both death and rebirth, wisdom and danger. In the Western tradition, we have Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, a figure often linked to the Greek god of medicine, Asclepius, who learned the secret of resurrection by watching one serpent bring healing herbs to another. This act of healing through a serpent's wisdom so threatened the natural order that Zeus struck him down with a thunderbolt, only to place him honorably in the stars. Meanwhile, in the Far East, Chinese astronomy features the azure dragon, one of the four celestial symbols. This magnificent serpentine creature, representing the East and the spring season, is a benevolent guardian, a bringer of rain and renewal. Yet it still possesses immense power and commands respect. From the Mediterranean to the Yellow River, the serpent in the sky embodies the universal understanding of a powerful, ambiguous force, a symbol of the knowledge that can either heal or destroy, demanding reverence from those who gaze upon it. This phenomenon of universal archetypes points to something profound about the human mind. The psychologist Carl Jung suggested that archetypes are part of our collective, unconscious, innate and universal psychic structures that shape how we experience the world. We didn't invent these stories, we discovered them both within ourselves and in the patterns of the night sky. The stars provided a neutral, external screen onto which we could project these deep, internal patterns. The brave lion, the nurturing mother, the treacherous scorpion, the loyal twins, these are not just constellations, they are fundamental facets of the human experience. By weaving their gods and myths into the heavens, our ancestors were doing more than just storytelling. They were creating a sacred bridge between the human and the divine, grounding their most profound beliefs in the eternal, unchanging stars, ensuring that every generation would look up and remember who they were, where they came from, and the timeless stories that connect us all. This celestial architecture was far more than symbolic. It was a physical, tangible technology designed to harness the power of the stars. Across the ancient world, our ancestors engineered their most sacred spaces to function as monumental calendars, observatories, and gateways to the divine, literally aligning stone with starlight. These structures stand as permanent testimony to a world view where heaven and earth were intimately connected, and where the rhythms of the cosmos directly governed human ritual and daily life. Perhaps no site captures this fusion of stone and sky more powerfully than Stonehenge on the Salisbury Plain in England. For centuries, this mysterious ring of massive standing stones has fascinated and perplexed visitors. We now understand it as a sophisticated astronomical computer, painstakingly constructed over generations. Its primary axis is precisely aligned to the summer solstice sunrise. On the longest day of the year, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, casting its beams into the very heart of the monument, but its purpose extended far beyond the sun. The Aubrey holes, a ring of 56 pits just inside the earthworks, are thought to have been used to predict lunar eclipses by moving markers in a complex pattern. The station stones form a perfect rectangle whose shorter sides point to the most extreme northern and southern rising points of the moon, an event that only occurs every 18.6 years. For the Neolithic people who built it, Stonehenge was a sacred interface where the cycles of the sun and moon were made visible, allowing them to anticipate celestial events that governed their ceremonies, their agriculture, and their connection to the ancestors. This practice of architectural alignment reached its zenith in ancient Egypt, where the very design of a temple was an act of cosmic imitation, recreating the primordial mound of creation on earth. The great temple of Amun-Ra at Karnak is a stunning example of this principle in action. Its entire layout is a direct reflection of the Egyptians' understanding of the cosmos. The massive pylons at the entrance represent the eastern mountains where the sun was born each day, while the darkened sanctuary at the far end symbolizes the sacred mound of creation itself. The most dramatic celestial alignment occurs during the winter solstice. On this day, the setting sun would shine directly down the temple's main axis through a series of increasingly restrictive doorways and finally illuminate the statue of the god Amun-Ra in the inner sanctuary. This was not a happy accident, it was deliberate astronomical engineering. The light of the reborn sun was quite literally feeding the god, renewing his power and by extension the power of the pharaoh and the entire kingdom. The temple was a machine for maintaining cosmic order, or mat, and its alignment ensured that the divine energy of the stars and planets could flow unimpeded into the world of men. Far to the north, in the sun-baked landscapes of ancient Greece, a different kind of celestial precision emerged within the hallowed grounds of the sanctuary of Apollo at Delphi. Known as the omphalos or navel of the world, Delphi was considered the center of the universe. The temple's orientation, however, reveals a deep connection to the constellations. It is uniquely aligned with the rising of the constellation Delphinus, the dolphin, in the month of September. This alignment is deeply woven into the foundation myth of the site. According to legend, Apollo first came to Delphi in the form of a dolphin, leaping onto a Cretan ship and compelling the sailors to become his first priests. By orienting his temple toward the celestial embodiment of that very dolphin, the architects eternally memorialized this divine story in stone and star. Furthermore, the Pleiades star cluster, known to the Greeks as a flock of doves, held particular significance. Their annual disappearance and reappearance in the sky marked the opening and closing of the navigation season in the Mediterranean. The priestesses of Delphi, the Pythias, were deeply attuned to these cycles, and it is believed that the timing of their prophecies was often synchronized with these pivotal celestial events, blending astronomical observation with divine inspiration. This grand tradition of astro-architecture finds a breathtaking New World expression at the Maya city of Chichen Itza with the towering pyramid of El Castillo. This structure is a masterwork of mathematical and astronomical intent. Each of its 4 sides has 91 steps, which, when added to the single step of the temple platform at the top, gives a total of 365 steps, one for each day of the solar year. But its true magic is revealed during the equinoxes. As the sun sets on these 2 days of perfect balance, a spectacular play of light and shadow unfolds. The corner of the pyramid casts a series of triangular shadows down the northern staircase, creating the illusion of a massive serpent slithering down from the temple to earth. This serpent is Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity, a symbol of rebirth and the connection between the earthly realm and the heavens. The pyramid doesn't just point to the sky, it actively performs the relationship between the earth and the cosmos, turning a celestial event into a powerful, public religious experience that reinforced the authority of the ruler as the mediator between the people and the gods. From the solstice alignments of Stonehenge to the equinox serpents of the Maya, these temples were more than buildings. They were the ultimate expression of a universal human desire to build a doorway to the stars, anchoring the fleeting motions of the heavens into the enduring stone of the earth. But what if the most famous lost civilization of all was also mapped in the stars? The legend of Atlantis, first described by the Greek philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, has captivated seekers for millennia. While many have searched for physical ruins beneath the ocean, a far more intriguing possibility exists: that Plato's detailed account is not a literal history but a complex allegory, a philosophical myth encoded with celestial symbolism. To understand this, we must step into the world of a 4th century B.C.E. Athenian aristocrat and student of Socrates. For Plato, myth was not falsehood. It was the vehicle for conveying profound truths about the nature of reality, the ideal state, and human virtue. His story of a powerful, advanced island nation that fell out of favor with the gods and sank beneath the waves in a single day and night was a morality tale about hubris and the fragility of civilization. But woven into this narrative are specific details that align remarkably well with the celestial geography of the ancient zodiac, suggesting Atlantis may be less a place and more a state of being reflected in the heavens. Plato's description of the city's layout is where the celestial clues become most apparent. He writes that the capital city of Atlantis was built on a hill and consisted of 3 concentric rings of water and 2 of land, connected by a grand canal to the sea. This precise circular design is highly unusual for any known ancient city, but it bears a striking resemblance to ancient Greek conceptions of the cosmos itself. The cosmos was often depicted as a series of concentric spheres with the Earth at the center, surrounded by the orbits of the planets, the fixed stars, and the sphere of the divine. This model, later formalized by Ptolemy, was already taking shape in Greek philosophical thought. The central hill of Atlantis, then, can be seen as the world axis, the axis mundi, around which the celestial spheres rotate. The alternating rings of land and water could symbolize the elemental spheres of earth and water, or even the planetary orbits. In this reading, Atlantis is not just a city, it is a microcosm, a perfect model of the universe as Plato understood it. The timing of Atlantis's destruction offers another compelling celestial parallel. Plato is very specific. The catastrophe occurred 9,000 years before the time of the Athenian lawgiver Solon, from whom he claims to have heard the story. This places the fall of Atlantis around 9600 B.C.E., a date that holds no significance in Earth's geological record. However, in the astronomical phenomenon known as the precession of the equinoxes, it is profoundly significant. The Earth's axis wobbles very slowly over a cycle of approximately 26,000 years. This means the position of the Sun against the backdrop of stars on the spring equinox shifts 1 degree every 72 years, moving through one full zodiac constellation every 2160 years. Calculating backward from Plato's time, 9,000 years prior would place the spring equinox Sun in the constellation of Leo. The lion is a universal symbol of kingship, power, and sovereignty, the very attributes of the Atlantean Empire at its peak. Its downfall, then, could be an allegory for the end of the age of Leo, a monumental shift in the great celestial year that ushered in a new world age. The one day and night of misfortune that sank the island could poetically represent this rapid transition from one astrological age to the next, a cosmic reset. Furthermore, the divine parentage of the Atlantean kings connects them directly to the pantheon of Greek gods, who themselves are intimately linked to the planets and stars. Plato states that the island was allotted to the god Poseidon, who fell in love with a mortal woman, Cleito. Their 5 pairs of twin sons became the first 10 kings of Atlantis. This genealogy is rich with celestial symbolism. Poseidon, as god of the sea and earthquakes, rules the element of water, which ultimately engulfs the continent. In astrology, the water signs Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are associated with emotion, the unconscious, and primordial chaos. The 10 kings could be seen as a representation of the visible planets known to the Greeks: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, plus the sun and moon, whose movements were thought to govern human affairs. The concept of twin rulership mirrors the duality found in many zodiac signs like Gemini, the twins. The eventual corruption of these kings by their mortal blood, leading to their downfall, is a classic philosophical warning about the conflict between our divine potential and our base human nature, a drama played out across the celestial sphere. Ultimately, viewing Atlantis through this zodiacal lens transforms it from a frustrating archaeological puzzle into a timeless philosophical masterpiece. Plato was likely using this grand myth to critique the imperial ambitions of his own day, particularly those of Athens, warning that no civilization, no matter how powerful or technologically advanced, is immune to the corrupting influence of greed and the pursuit of power beyond its divinely appointed limits. The celestial symbolism provided him with a universal language, a framework that would have been instinctively understood by his contemporaries educated in Pythagorean and Orphic mysteries. The stars were the permanent, unchanging record of divine law. By anchoring his story in this cosmic framework, Plato elevated it from a simple tale to a profound commentary on the cyclical nature of history and the eternal struggle between order and chaos, between the ideal and the real. Atlantis, then, may be forever lost to the ocean not because it sank beneath the waves, but because it was never a physical place to begin with. It exists where it always has, in the stars above and the human soul below, a celestial metaphor for a perfect society that lost its way, a warning etched in the very fabric of the night sky. Moving from the grand architectural alignments of temples to the intimate, secretive world of the medieval alchemist's laboratory, we find the zodiac symbolism undergoing another profound transformation. Here, the stars were not just observed, they were internalized, becoming a coded spiritual map for the ultimate human quest, the transformation of the base self into a perfected being. For these philosopher-scientists working in shadowy chambers across Europe, the 12 signs were far more than celestial markers. They became the 12 essential steps in the magnum opus, the great work, a sequential guide to both purifying matter and perfecting the soul. This was a deeply dangerous and heretical endeavor in its time, as it sought to unlock divine secrets without the direct intercession of the Church, and the zodiac provided the perfect, hidden language to veil their operations from the uninitiated. The entire alchemical process was a mirror of the cosmos, a recreation of creation itself within the confines of the flask, known as the philosophical egg. The first crucial stage, nigredo or the blackening, was universally associated with the sign of Saturn. This was not the planet, but the cold, leaden, melancholic energy of the old god of time and decay. In the flask, it represented the putrefaction of the base matter, the chaotic prima materia, as it was heated and broke down into a black, formless mass. Symbolically, for the alchemist, this was the essential first step of spiritual despair, the dark night of the soul. It was the necessary destruction of the ego, the rotting away of all worldly attachments and illusions, a descent into the blackest despair where one confronted their own inner shadow. Without this death, no rebirth was possible. From this blackness emerged the next phase, albedo or the whitening, a stage purified by the moist, feminine influence of the moon and intimately connected to the sign of Cancer, the crab. The matter would begin to sublimate, rising as a white vapor before condensing again, a process repeated thousands of times. This washing and purifying was symbolized by the dove, a bird of peace and the Holy Spirit, and it represented the cleansing of the soul from its sins. The alchemist sought to achieve a state of lunar purity, of receptivity and intuition, washing away the corruption of the black stage. This white stone, while purified, was still considered passive and incomplete. It was the silver of the soul, not yet the gold. The fiery climax of the operation was rubedo, the reddening, a stage ruled by the sun and powerfully aligned with the regal, fixed fire of Leo, the lion. This was the conjunction of opposites, the sacred marriage or hieros gamos, between the red king sulfur, spirit, consciousness, and the white queen Mercury, soul, unconsciousness. In their mystical union within the flask, they would give birth to the philosopher's stone, often depicted as a radiant golden child. The lion was a potent symbol for this stage. The green lion devouring the sun represented the raw, corrosive aqua regia dissolving gold, while the red lion symbolized the ultimate perfected stone itself, a tincture so powerful it could transmute base metals and grant immortality. For the adept, this was the achievement of enlightenment, a state of solar consciousness where the individual will was perfectly aligned with the divine will, resulting in a body of glory, resurrected and eternal. Beyond these three primary stages, other signs played critical supporting roles. The mutable, dual-natured sign of Gemini, the twins, was essential for understanding the duality that had to be reconciled: body and spirit, male and female, sulfur and Mercury. The virgin purity of Virgo often symbolized the uncorrupted matter at the start of the work, or the ideal state of the alchemist's mind. Even the fixed water sign of Scorpio, with its themes of death, sex, and regeneration, represented the powerful transformative forces at work, capable of breaking down the most resistant psychological and material structures. This entire system was beautifully summarized in the magnificent, symbolic engravings of books like the Rosarium Philosophorum, where the entire zodiacal wheel encircles the alchemical process, charting the soul's arduous journey from the lead of Saturnian despair to the gold of solar enlightenment, proving that the greatest transformation of all was not of metal but of the human spirit. As the Age of Reason dawned in Europe, a different kind of order was meeting in candlelit lodges and hidden chambers, seeking ancient truths not through telescopes but through ritual and symbol. Secret societies like the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians emerged as custodians of an esoteric tradition, and they found in the zodiac a perfect, multi-layered language for encoding their philosophies. For these fraternities, the celestial wheel was far more than an astronomical chart. It was a spiritual map of the initiate's journey from ignorance to enlightenment, a blueprint for moral development, and a hidden thread connecting them to the wisdom of the ancients. They saw themselves as the heirs to a primordial tradition, a Prisca Theologia, that stretched back through the Renaissance Magi, the Knights Templar, and the builders of Solomon's Temple, all the way to the Egyptian mystery schools and the stargazers of Babylon. The zodiac provided a universal, timeless vocabulary to express this connected history, allowing them to weave celestial codes into the very fabric of their existence, from their initiation ceremonies to the layout of their meeting halls. The architectural symbolism is perhaps the most visible legacy of this celestial encoding. Step inside a traditional Masonic lodge, and you are literally stepping into a microcosm of the universe. The room itself is oriented east to west, symbolizing the sun's daily journey. The ceiling is often painted a deep blue and scattered with stars, representing the vault of heaven. Most significantly, the two great pillars that flank the entrance, named Bos and Jachin after the pillars of Solomon's Temple, are frequently adorned with celestial globes. One globe depicts the celestial charts and constellations, the other the Earth. This is a direct representation of the Masonic maxim, as above, so below, placing the initiate between the macrocosm of the heavens and the microcosm of the Earth, reminding him that his task is to bring his inner world into harmony with the divine order. The zodiac itself is often intricately painted around the room or incorporated into the mosaic pavement on the floor, a constant reminder that the initiate's path is a journey through the great celestial year, facing and integrating the lessons of each sign. This journey is ritually enacted in the degrees of initiation. While the specifics are closely guarded, it is widely understood that the progression through Masonic degrees mirrors an astrological progression through the signs, with each step correlating to the development of specific virtues and the mastery of one's inner nature. The first degree might be associated with the raw, earthly energy of Taurus, focusing on stability, patience, and learning to control base desires. A later degree could correspond to the analytical, communicative energy of Gemini, teaching the initiate to reconcile duality and seek truth. The ultimate degrees aim for the spiritual sacrifice and transcendence symbolized by Pisces, the final sign, representing the dissolution of the ego and union with the divine. This isn't about sun sign astrology, it's about using the zodiac as a profound psychological and spiritual archetype system. The initiate isn't learning his horoscope, he is learning to become the entire zodiac to perfect all its aspects within his own character. The more mystical Rosicrucians, who often overlapped with Masonic membership, took this celestial coding even further into the realm of alchemy and Kabbalah. For them, the 12 signs were the 12 gates to the celestial city, the 12 steps of the alchemical process for transmuting the lead of the human soul into spiritual gold. They mapped the zodiac onto the Kabbalistic tree of life, associating each sign with a specific path between the Sephiroth, or divine emanations. This created a complex system of correspondences where a sign, a planet, a Hebrew letter, and a virtue all resonated together. To meditate on the symbol of Leo, for instance, was not just to contemplate solar power but to connect with the Sephira of Jebura severity, the Hebrew letter Teth, and the alchemical stage of Rubido. This system was a spiritual technology, a means of using symbolic concentration to ascend through the levels of reality and achieve gnosis, or direct knowledge of the divine. This hidden language served a crucial purpose during the Enlightenment, an era of growing skepticism and religious fracture. By embedding their ideals in celestial symbolism, these societies could discuss progressive ideas about religious tolerance, moral philosophy, and personal liberty under the radar of church and state authorities. A painting of the sun in its splendor could represent both the astrological sun and the Enlightenment ideal of reason illuminating the world. The compass and square, central Masonic tools, were not just builders' implements but symbols of measuring one's actions against the eternal laws of the cosmos. In this way, the zodiac and its associated symbols became a safe container for revolutionary thought. The fraternities were building a new kind of temple, not with physical stone, but with living men, each one a rough ashlar being shaped through ritual and symbol into a perfect cube, ready to help construct a more enlightened society, all under the silent, watchful guidance of the eternal stars. Yet this obsession with celestial destiny was not mere superstition. It was a calculated tool of statecraft and personal branding. Napoleon understood the power of symbolism and myth in shaping public perception and legitimizing his rule. By embracing and promoting these astrological narratives, he was crafting his own legend, positioning himself not just as a successful general, but as a man chosen by fate, a force of nature as inevitable and powerful as the movements of the planets themselves. This was particularly crucial for a man who rose from relative obscurity to crown himself emperor, a move that required a profound shift in how he was viewed by the aristocracy and the common people alike. The language of the stars provided a timeless, authoritative framework for this transformation. His court painters were instructed to include subtle celestial motifs in his portraits, and official proclamations often used language that echoed the grandeur and inevitability of astronomical events. He wasn't just winning battles, he was fulfilling a cosmic prophecy, and he ensured every citizen of France knew it. This masterful manipulation of public opinion through celestial symbolism may be one of his most enduring and overlooked strategic victories. The profound irony, of course, is that Napoleon's unwavering belief in his own stellar fortune may have ultimately contributed to his most catastrophic miscalculation, the invasion of Russia in 1812. Flush with years of victory and convinced of his invincibility, he appears to have interpreted any celestial alignment as a favorable omen for his ambitions. He dismissed the stark warnings of his more pragmatic advisors about the Russian winter, perhaps trusting in what he saw as his predetermined success. The campaign was a disaster of historic proportions, decimating his grand army and shattering the aura of inevitability that had surrounded him. The man who had ridden the tide of celestial prophecy now found himself dashed against the rocks of cold, hard reality. This tragic arc raises a haunting question for history. Did the very belief system that fueled his rise and fortified his confidence also blind him to practical realities and lead to his downfall? It is a powerful reminder that while belief can be a potent motivator, it can also become a dangerous liability when it overrides reason and strategic calculation. Napoleon's story is far from unique in the annals of power. From the Roman emperors who consulted astrologers before every major decision to the modern-day leaders who have sought cosmic guidance, the allure of the zodiac has long tempted those who hold the fate of nations in their hands. This historical pattern reveals a deep, perhaps innate, human desire to find order and meaning in the chaos of events, to believe that our lives are part of a larger, more magnificent story written in the stars. For a figure like Napoleon, the zodiac was more than a parlor game. It was a source of immense psychological strength, a narrative that allowed him to take colossal risks and inspire fanatical loyalty. It provided a framework for understanding both triumph and tragedy, not as random occurrences, but as parts of a predetermined celestial script. In the end, whether the stars truly guided his hand or simply gave him the courage to follow his own ambition is a mystery as captivating as the constellations themselves. His life stands as a testament to the incredible power of belief and a timeless warning about the perils of confusing celestial symbolism with earthly fact. This dark fascination with zodiacal symbolism takes a chillingly modern turn in the case of one of America's most infamous unsolved mysteries. In the late 1960s and early 70s, the San Francisco Bay Area was terrorized by a murderer who called himself the Zodiac. This was not just a killer, he was a meticulous author of fear, and his chosen pen name was deeply intentional. His communications to the press were not mere taunts. They were dense with cryptic symbols, complex ciphers, and direct references to the celestial realm. The most infamous of these was a three-part cipher mailed to 3 newspapers in 1969, a code that began with the declaration that this was the Zodiac speaking. But why choose this specific mythological framework? Was this a deeply disturbed individual drawing genuine inspiration from ancient astrological traditions, seeing himself as an agent of celestial destiny, or was the zodiacal motif merely a clever, macabre brand, a distracting layer of esoteric noise designed to baffle investigators and mythologize his crimes? To understand the potential connection, we must look at the symbols he employed beyond just his name. His most recognizable creation was the cross-circle symbol, a stark, geometric design that he used to sign his letters. While not a direct copy of any ancient astrological glyph, its simplicity and power are reminiscent of the kind of sigils used in medieval alchemy and hermetic magic to represent the fusion of opposites or the containment of power. More directly, in one of his later communications, he referenced the slave planet and mentioned collecting slaves for his afterlife, a concept some researchers have tenuously linked to archaic astrological beliefs about planetary influences determining one's station in life and beyond. This suggests a mind that was not just superficially attracted to the mystery of the stars, but one that may have been engaged with a distorted, nihilistic interpretation of fate and celestial hierarchy. He wasn't just killing. In his mind, he might have been performing a dark ritual, fulfilling a twisted role assigned by the cosmos, much like an ancient priest interpreting a deadly omen. However, a compelling counterargument exists that the zodiac symbolism was primarily a tactical weapon, a tool for intellectual vanity and control. The Zodiac Killer demonstrated a profound understanding of media manipulation and cryptography. By wrapping his threats in a cloak of ancient mystery, he elevated his crimes from random acts of violence into a grand, terrifying narrative. He was no longer just a man, he was the Zodiac, an archetypal force as old as time itself. This created a powerful brand of fear that guaranteed front-page news and ensured his letters would be pored over by experts and the public alike. The ciphers themselves, particularly the first one that was eventually broken, contained boastful and narcissistic language focused on the thrill of killing and outsmarting the police. The celestial references could simply be the most effective genre he could choose to amplify his notoriety and embed himself permanently in the public consciousness, achieving a form of dark immortality that a mere name could never provide. The tragic irony is that his use of the Zodiac, a system created by ancient civilizations to find order and meaning in a vast cosmos, was inverted to create chaos and terror. Where Babylonian priests looked to the stars to predict the flooding of rivers that would nourish their crops, the Zodiac looked to the same symbols to orchestrate suffering. Where medieval alchemists used the 12 signs as a map for spiritual purification, he may have twisted it into a justification for his own corruption. This dichotomy lies at the heart of the mystery. We are left with two haunting possibilities. One is that the Zodiac Killer was a modern-day manifestation of the darkest astrological archetypes, a real-life embodiment of the destructive potential seen in the malefic planets of old. The other is that he was a profoundly cynical criminal genius who recognized the enduring power of these ancient symbols and weaponized their mystery, leaving behind a puzzle that uses the language of the stars to conceal a void of pure malevolence. Just when we think the puzzle of the ancient zodiacs is nearly complete, a fresh wave of archaeological discovery sweeps in, overturning long-held assumptions and forcing us to rewrite entire chapters of history. The field of archaeoastronomy is now electrified by a series of breakthroughs where cutting-edge technology meets the meticulous work of the trowel, revealing that our ancestors' celestial knowledge was far more sophisticated and widespread than we ever imagined. One of the most startling revelations comes not from a hidden tomb, but from a well-known site that has been misunderstood for centuries. The famous Nebra sky disk discovered in Germany in 1999 was initially dated to around 1600 BCE and celebrated as the world's oldest concrete depiction of the cosmos. But recent, more rigorous scientific analyses have thrown that timeline into question. Advanced lead isotope testing suggests the disk may be several hundred years younger, placing its creation not in the early Bronze Age but much closer to the Iron Age. This shift, while seemingly small, is seismic. It means the disk likely was not an isolated, precocious invention by a local Central European culture, but rather a product of a period of intense cultural exchange across the continent. The gold appliques on the disk, representing the Sun, Moon, and Pleiades star cluster, now appear to reflect a synthesis of knowledge flowing along trade routes from the Mediterranean, potentially influenced by Babylonian or even Greek astronomical ideas. This transforms the Nebra sky disk from a mysterious outlier into a powerful piece of evidence for a pan-European network of celestial knowledge, proving that the language of the stars was a universal currency long before written history. Meanwhile, in the sun-scorched deserts of Egypt, another long-held belief is crumbling. For generations, Egyptologists largely dismissed the idea of a classical 12-sign zodiac in ancient Egypt, arguing that their timekeeping relied on a different system, the 36 decans that marked the hours of the night. The magnificent Dendera zodiac was often viewed as a late outlier, a product of Greek influence during the Ptolemaic period. That narrative is now being completely dismantled by a sensational discovery in the shadow of the Great Pyramid at Saqqara. Archaeologists recently unearthed a series of previously unknown tombs belonging to high priests of the 5th dynasty, roughly 4,500 years old. Inside, the walls are adorned with incredibly well-preserved astrological charts. These charts don't just feature the decans, they clearly show a circular band divided into 12 sections, each populated by familiar figures: a bull, a pair of twins, a scorpion. The art style is unmistakably Old Kingdom, predating significant contact with Mesopotamia or Greece by over a millennium. This find is nothing short of revolutionary. It suggests the Egyptians were developing their own complex zodiacal system parallel to, and possibly independent of, the Babylonians. The bull of Taurus on these walls is not the Greek Minotaur or the Babylonian heavenly bull. It is the Apis bull, sacred to the god Ptah. This forces a dramatic reassessment, indicating that the desire to map human experience onto 12 segments of the sky may have arisen independently in multiple cradles of civilization, a shared human response to the cosmos rather than a single invention that slowly spread. The most cutting-edge tools in this revisionist wave are not just brushes and sieves, but lasers and algorithms. Light detection and ranging technology, or LiDAR, is peeling back the jungle canopy in Central and South America, revealing astronomical alignments on a scale previously invisible to the naked eye. In the Amazon basin, what were once thought to be simple geometric earthworks have been revealed by LiDAR surveys as massive, precise celestial observatories. These structures, built by complex societies over 2,000 years ago, are aligned not just to solstices and equinoxes, but to the heliacal risings of specific stars like Sirius and the precise zenith passages of the Sun, events that require generations of meticulous observation to pinpoint. Similarly, new software is allowing researchers to perform statistical probability analyses on the alignments of thousands of megalithic sites across Europe. The results are overturning the old debate about whether these alignments are intentional or coincidental. The analysis shows an overwhelming statistical probability that sites like Newgrange in Ireland and the Almenda's Cromlech in Portugal are part of a coordinated, continent-wide tradition of celestial observation, with certain star clusters and lunar extreme points targeted again and again with mathematical precision. This suggests a far more connected and intellectually sophisticated Neolithic world than we ever conceived, where knowledge of the 19-year metonic cycle of the moon, a cycle we once thought was discovered by the Greeks, may have been commonly understood by Stone Age astronomers. Perhaps the most humanizing discovery comes from the unlikeliest of sources, ancient trash. At a site in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, archaeologists sifting through a Hellenistic-era rubbish dump uncovered a broken, seemingly insignificant clay pot. But inside, they found a collection of tiny, ivory dice-like objects. Initially catalogued as gaming pieces, they were later examined under a microscope, revealing faint, precise etchings of zodiac signs, planetary symbols, and Greek letters. A researcher realized they were looking at the components of an ancient portable astrological calculator, a kind of analog computer for casting horoscopes. This wasn't a tool for high priests in a temple. This was a personal device, something a traveling astrologer might carry to set up shop in a new town or a wealthy family might own to check the fortunes of a newborn. This humble find is more transformative than any grand monument. It proves that by the 2nd century BCE, astrological knowledge based on the zodiac had filtered down from the elite to a broader segment of society. It was no longer just for kings and emperors. It was becoming a part of daily life, a commodity, a personal source of guidance and meaning. This shattered pot speaks volumes about the democratization of cosmic knowledge, showing us that the desire to find our story in the stars is a deeply human impulse, one that has connected us across millennia, from the greatest empires to the most individual, intimate moments of life. Long before the invention of the magnetic compass or the chronometer, the vast, empty expanse of the open ocean was not a barrier but a pathway, guided by the silent, fixed lights of the heavens. For ancient mariners, the night sky was their most trusted chart, and the constellations of the zodiac served as critical signposts on journeys that connected continents and fueled the rise of empires. This was not a matter of myth or superstition. It was a sophisticated, practical science of survival. The Phoenicians, perhaps the greatest sailors of the ancient world, meticulously tracked the movement of the sun through the zodiacal band to navigate their trade routes across the entire Mediterranean and beyond, even venturing out into the Atlantic along the coast of Africa. They understood that as the seasons changed, so too did the prominent constellations of the night, providing a reliable celestial calendar that dictated the safest times to set sail. The heliacal rising of a specific sign, its first appearance just before dawn after a period of invisibility, could signal the end of winter storms or the beginning of the calm summer sailing season, making their voyages not just possible but predictable. The most crucial technique relied on observing the altitude of these celestial bodies above the horizon. While the North Star, Polaris, was the fixed pivot point for northern latitudes, it was not always visible on routes closer to the equator or in the southern hemisphere. This is where the zodiac constellations became indispensable. A skilled navigator would know the precise path of each zodiac sign throughout the year. By measuring the angle of a bright star within a constellation like Aldebaran in Taurus or Regulus in Leo, as it rose or set, they could estimate their latitude. They used simple yet effective tools for this. The camel, used by Arab navigators in the Indian Ocean, was a small wooden rectangle attached to a string with several knots. The navigator would hold the knot in their teeth and move the card until its top and bottom aligned with a specific star and the horizon. The knot used indicated a known latitude, essentially creating a stellar milestone that guided them to their destination. Similarly, Polynesian voyagers, the unparalleled masters of the Pacific, employed an even more intimate knowledge of the stars. They memorized hundreds of stars and constellations, understanding not just their position but their path across the sky, using them as a compass to steer their massive double-hulled canoes across thousands of miles of open water to tiny, remote islands. The zodiac was particularly vital for east-west travel, as these constellations trace the path of the sun, moon, and planets along the ecliptic. For a merchant ship traveling from Alexandria to Rome, knowing the position of Virgo or Libra in the evening sky could confirm they were on the correct parallel and heading in the right direction. The myths attached to these constellations served as more than just stories. They were powerful mnemonic devices. The tale of the twins Castor and Pollux, represented by Gemini, was especially important to Greek and Roman sailors who believed the appearance of these stars could calm a storm. This practical observation likely stemmed from the fact that their appearance coincided with a slightly more stable weather window in the spring. The entire practice was a beautiful fusion of empirical observation and cultural belief, where hard-won navigational data was encoded into poetry and legend, making it easier to pass this critical knowledge down through generations of seafarers who could not read or write. This celestial guidance system enabled some of the most ambitious voyages in history. The expansion of the Roman Empire across the Mediterranean was powered by ships that used the stars to supply their legions. The vast trade networks of the Indian Ocean, connecting Rome to India and beyond, relied on the seasonal monsoon winds, which were themselves predicted by the stellar positions. Arab dhows would set sail from Oman with the rising of certain stars, catching the wind to cross the ocean, and return months later when the constellations had shifted, signaling the wind had reversed. The knowledge of how to read the zodiac for navigation was a closely guarded secret, a form of intellectual capital that could make a city-state immensely wealthy or grant a kingdom naval supremacy. It was the original global positioning system, a network of waypoints written in starlight that guided humanity out of sight of land and into a new era of exploration, trade, and cultural exchange, all by learning to sail the great sea of the night sky. This celestial influence wasn't just a guide for kings and sailors. It was believed to flow directly into the human body, dictating health and prescribing cures. Long before modern medicine, physicians from ancient Greece to imperial China saw the human form as a microcosm of the universe, with each zodiac sign governing a specific part of our anatomy and influencing our physical well-being. This practice, known as melathesia, created a fascinating and intricate system of zodiac medicine, where a doctor's first task wasn't just to diagnose an illness but to chart the stars. The most famous and enduring of these systems has its roots in the work of the Greek physician Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine. While he emphasized observation and clinical practice, he also worked within the framework of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These bodily fluids weren't just chemicals, they were directly tied to the four elements and the qualities of the zodiac. A fiery, choleric ailment like a fever or inflammation was linked to an excess of yellow bile and was thought to be aggravated when the Sun or Mars was in a fire sign like Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius. A physician would therefore not only prescribe a cooling diet but might also advise waiting for the moon to move into a watery, phlegmatic sign like Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces to balance the body's overheated state. The zodiac provided a timing mechanism for treatment, a celestial schedule for administering remedies, bleeding patients, or even scheduling surgeries, all in an effort to harmonize the inner workings of the body with the powerful forces of the cosmos. This anatomical mapping was extraordinarily precise. Each of the 12 signs was assigned rule over a specific part of the body, creating a head-to-toe map of celestial influence. Aries, the first sign, naturally governed the head and face, making those born under this sign supposedly more prone to headaches or head injuries. Taurus ruled the neck and throat, Gemini the arms, lungs, and nervous system. This system went far beyond simple correlation. It was a diagnostic tool. If a patient presented with a persistent liver ailment, an ancient Greek physician might note that the ruling sign, Sagittarius, was under affliction by the planet Saturn in their natal chart, suggesting a chronic, obstructive condition. Treatment would then be designed not only to address the physical symptoms, but also to counteract this specific celestial imbalance, perhaps through herbs associated with the opposing sign of Gemini, or by performing a procedure during a time when the benevolent planet Jupiter was strong. This wasn't considered superstition. It was a rational, holistic model of the universe where nothing happened in isolation. A disease was a symptom of a deeper disharmony between the individual and the cosmos, and true healing required restoring that cosmic balance. A parallel, yet distinctly different, tradition flourished in ancient China, where healing was deeply interwoven with the principles of the Chinese zodiac and the 5 elements. Here, a person's birth year animal was believed to imprint a fundamental constitutional tendency, while the prevailing element of that year added a layer of nuance to their health. Someone born in a year of the wood rabbit, for instance, was thought to have a constitution related to the liver organ system in traditional Chinese medicine. Wood energy is about growth, flexibility, and smooth flow, so a wood rabbit might be prone to issues like muscular tension, eye problems, or frustration when this natural energy becomes blocked or stagnant. A fire horse, on the other hand, with its intense and passionate energy linked to the heart system, might be more susceptible to heart palpitations, insomnia, or inflammatory conditions if their inner fire burned too uncontrollably. A master healer would use this information to tailor treatments, prescribing acupuncture points, specific herbal formulas, and dietary advice designed to nurture the strengths and correct the inherent weaknesses of that zodiac archetype, always striving to achieve a perfect balance of yin and yang within the body. The legacy of zodiac medicine is far more than a historical curiosity. It represents a profound and universal human desire to see our bodies as part of a larger, meaningful whole. While modern science has rightfully moved on to more empirical models, This ancient practice reminds us that health was once viewed as a dynamic state of harmony between the individual and the seasons, the planets, and the very elements of nature. It was a system that demanded physicians see their patients not as a collection of symptoms, but as unique individuals whose path to wellness was written not just in their cells, but in the stars under which they were born. This holistic perspective, which seeks to treat the root cause of imbalance rather than just the ailment, continues to influence complementary medicine and our ongoing search for a truly integrated approach to health and well-being. For centuries, the 12 signs of the zodiac have felt like a fixed, unchanging truth, a celestial belt whose boundaries were set in stone by the ancients. But here's a secret the stars have been keeping for over 2,000 years. The sky has slowly, imperceptibly been shifting beneath our feet. This cosmic sleight of hand is due to a magnificent, wobbling dance of our planet known as axial precession. Imagine a spinning top. As it rotates, its axis doesn't stay perfectly upright. It traces a slow, lazy circle. Earth does the exact same thing. Our planet's axis is tilted, and gravity from the Sun and Moon tug on Earth's equatorial bulge, causing this axis to slowly wobble in a complete circle over a cycle of approximately 26,000 years. This means the direction in which Earth's North Pole points gradually changes over centuries. Right now, we're fortunate that it points to Polaris, the North Star. But in about 12,000 years, it will point toward the brilliant star Vega. This wobble might seem like a distant astronomical curiosity, but its effect on the zodiac is immediate and profound. Because of this slow-motion wobble, the backdrop of stars against which we see the sun rise on the spring equinox is not the same as it was when the Babylonians established the zodiac. The Babylonians, around 2,500 years ago, defined the first sign, Aries, as beginning at the precise moment the sun crossed the celestial equator heading north, an event that marked their new year. At that time, the sun was positioned in front of the constellation Aries, but precession has caused the date of the equinox to slide backward through the constellations at a rate of about 1 degree every 72 years. This means that over the last 2 millennia, the spring equinox point has drifted completely out of Aries and has been moving through the constellation of Pisces for the last 2,000 years. So, if you were born between March 21st and April 19th, an astrologer would call you an Aries, but astronomically, on the day of your birth, the sun was almost certainly located in front of the stars of Pisces. This creates a divergence of nearly an entire sign between the tropical zodiac used by most Western astrologers and the actual sidereal positions of the constellations. The tropical zodiac, formalized by Ptolemy, is fixed to the seasons, not the stars. It uses the spring equinox as its unmoving starting point for Aries, regardless of what constellation is behind the sun on that day. This is why your astrological sign remains consistent. The sidereal zodiac, still used in Vedic astrology, attempts to stay true to the actual star positions and therefore accounts for this precessional shift. This means that if you identify as a Taurus in the Western system, you might be considered an Aries in the sidereal system. This isn't a matter of one system being right and the other wrong. They are simply anchored to 2 different celestial clocks, one tied to the seasons on Earth and the other tied to the fixed stars of the galaxy. Beyond just shifting the signs, precession also introduces a 13th player to the celestial game, Ophiuchus, the serpent-bearer. The sun's path, the ecliptic, actually passes through this large constellation situated between Scorpio and Sagittarius. The Babylonians were aware of Ophiuchus but chose to divide the sky into 12 equal sections of 30 degrees each to neatly match their 12-month lunar calendar. To include a 13th sign would have disrupted their beautifully symmetrical system. So Ophiuchus was left out of the official zodiac, a forgotten guest at the cosmic party. If we were to adopt a truly astronomically correct zodiac today that reflected the actual constellation boundaries defined by the International Astronomical Union, the Sun would spend far more time in some constellations than others. It spends only about a week in front of Scorpius, but a whopping 44 days in Virgo. This reality shatters the idea of 12 neat, equal slices of the celestial pie, revealing a far more complex and irregular sky than the one we've inherited from antiquity. The most awe-inspiring consequence of precession is the concept of the Great Year, the full 26,000-year cycle of the wobble. As the equinox point completes its slow march through all 12 constellations, it defines vast eras of time, each lasting around 2,160 years. We are currently nearing the end of the age of Pisces and are on the cusp of entering the age of Aquarius. This is not about your sun sign, but about which constellation the sun rises in on the spring equinox, an event that influences the collective spiritual and cultural themes of an entire epoch. The dawning of a new astrological age is a gradual process, not a flip of a switch, but it invites profound reflection on how the symbolism of the stars has subtly shaped human history and may yet guide our future. Today, we are witnessing a revolution in our understanding of these ancient celestial maps, powered not by stargazing priests, but by lines of code and artificial intelligence. Advanced computational tools are now sifting through millennia of astronomical data, art, and text, uncovering hidden patterns and connections that the human eye could never perceive on its own. This digital archaeology is revealing a web of celestial knowledge far more intricate and interconnected than we ever imagined. For instance, researchers are using machine learning algorithms to analyze thousands of cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia. These algorithms are not just translating text, they are identifying subtle correlations between specific celestial events described in omens and the historical outcomes recorded alongside them, potentially revealing the empirical observations that underpinned what we once dismissed as mere superstition. The computer can process vast datasets of planetary positions and historical harvest yields or conflict records, searching for statistical patterns that might have been intuitively grasped by ancient scholars but never explicitly stated. This allows us to see their system not as random guesswork, but as a complex, data-driven attempt to model the world. One of the most exciting applications lies in the field of archaeoastronomy, where AI is being used to reanalyze the alignments of ancient temples with a precision never before possible. Sophisticated software can now model the precise position of stars and planets for any date in history, accounting for the subtle effects of precession that change the sky over centuries. Researchers can input the exact geographical coordinates and architectural specifications of a site like the Karnak Temple or El Castillo, and the AI can run millions of simulations to identify the most probable celestial targets for its alignment. This has moved beyond just the solstices and equinoxes. We are now discovering alignments to the heliacal risings of specific stars like Sirius or the precise zenith passages of the Sun, events that require generations of meticulous observation to pinpoint. These findings suggest a level of astronomical precision in ancient cultures that we are only beginning to appreciate, with AI acting as the key that unlocks these long-forgotten celestial codes. Perhaps the most profound impact is in the field of comparative mythology. Natural language processing algorithms, a branch of AI designed to understand human language, are now being let loose on the world's corpus of ancient myths and astronomical records. These systems can scan through the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Egyptian pyramid texts, and Vedic hymns simultaneously, identifying shared narrative structures, character archetypes, and symbolic motifs tied to celestial phenomena. They are helping to map how a story about a hero, a bull, or a set of twins might have traveled along trade routes, morphing and adapting from Babylon to Greece to India, each culture layering its own beliefs onto a shared celestial foundation. This technology is providing quantitative evidence for the intuitive connections scholars have long suspected, revealing a deep and ancient network of storytelling that used the stars as its common canvas. We are moving from wondering if these connections exist to understanding the precise pathways they likely traveled, watching the birth and migration of archetypes unfold in data visualizations. This technological renaissance is not without its philosophical challenges. As we feed more data into these systems, we must be cautious of the patterns we ask them to find. An algorithm designed to seek connections will inevitably find them, but it falls to human researchers to distinguish between statistically significant correlations and meaningless noise. The real magic happens in the collaboration between human intuition and machine intelligence, where a scholar's hypothesis about a potential link between a Maya constellation and a Chinese asterism can be tested against a global database of myths and astronomical records in seconds. This partnership is allowing us to see the ancient zodiac not as a collection of separate, isolated systems, but as a magnificent global tapestry of human thought, where cultures across time and space were engaged in a shared project to find meaning in the majestic, silent expanse of the night sky, and artificial intelligence is giving us the first complete view of their collective masterpiece. Imagine the shock of sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901, discovering a Roman shipwreck filled with marble statues and bronze artifacts. Among the treasures was a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed utterly unremarkable. It wasn't for another 50 years that science historian Derek J. de Solla Price would begin to understand they had actually found the world's first known analog computer. X-ray analysis revealed an incredibly complex clockwork assembly of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, precisely housed in a wooden case no larger than a shoebox. This device, now known as the Antikythera mechanism, was a portable planetarium and a celestial calculator of breathtaking sophistication, built in the 2nd century BCE. Its purpose was to predict the motion of the heavens, and at the very heart of its intricate functions was a detailed, moving model of the ancient zodiac. The front face of the mechanism was a masterpiece of cosmic representation. A large circular dial featured a ring that was fixed, representing the calendar year with the 12 months and days. Rotating around this was a second ring, representing the 12 signs of the Babylonian Greek zodiac. But this ring was not static. It was a dynamic display driven by a complex train of gears. A hand crank on the side of the device was the power source. With each turn, the user would set the entire cosmos in motion. As the crank turned, the zodiac ring would rotate slowly, simulating the precession of the equinoxes over years. Simultaneously, pointers for the sun, moon, and the 5 known planets would sweep across this zodiac backdrop, moving at their different, mathematically precise speeds to show their real-time positions against the constellations. This wasn't a static map, it was a working, mechanical simulation of the night sky for any given date. A user could turn the crank to a future date and watch where the planets would be, or rewind it to a past event to see the celestial configuration that accompanied it. The true genius of the mechanism lay in its ability to model the irregular motions of heavenly bodies, a problem that had confounded astronomers for centuries. The moon, for instance, does not orbit Earth at a constant speed. It moves faster at perigee, its closest point, and slower at apogee, its farthest point. To account for this, the device's creators engineered a brilliant solution using a pin and slot mechanism on one of its main gears. As this gear turned, the pin engaged a slot on a secondary gear, causing its rotation to subtly speed up and slow down in a perfect mimicry of the moon's actual variable motion. This meant the mechanism's moon pointer didn't just move in a simple circle across the zodiac. It traveled with a lifelike wobble, accurately reflecting the moon's true elliptical path through the constellations of Taurus, Gemini, and beyond. This single mechanical feature demonstrates a level of astronomical understanding and mechanical ingenuity that historians once believed was impossible for its time, proving the ancient Greeks possessed knowledge that would be lost for over a millennium. Beyond simply showing positions, the Antikythera mechanism was also an astrological prediction engine. The back of the device featured several spiral dials, one of which was a 47-month Saros cycle dial used to predict lunar and solar eclipses. This was not just a scientific pursuit. Eclipses were powerful omens. The device could predict the exact time and date of an upcoming eclipse, and crucially, it could even indicate the color the moon might turn during the event, a detail ancient astrologers believed hinted at the eclipse's meaning, whether it portended famine, war, or the death of a king. Another dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games, a period of sacred truce and competition that was itself tied to celestial cycles. By knowing the positions of the planets within the zodiac signs at the time of these events, a priest or advisor could offer a highly detailed astrological reading. They could say, for example, that an eclipse would occur with Mars, the god of war, in the constellation of the Scorpion, a sign often associated with death and transformation, suggesting a particularly violent or significant omen for the ruling power. The Antikythera mechanism stands as the ultimate physical testament to the ancient fusion of astronomy and astrology. It was a tool that rendered the abstract philosophical concept of as above, so below into tangible, moving bronze. It took the vast, incomprehensible scale of cosmic time and brought it into the hands of a single user, making the future of the heavens something that could be calculated, predicted, and interpreted. This one device encapsulates the entire intellectual journey of the zodiac, from the Babylonian priests who first mapped the celestial highway, to the Greek philosophers who systematized its influence on human character, to the master engineers who sought to build a machine that could hold its very essence. It proves that for the ancient world, the movement of the planets through the zodiac was not a matter of vague belief, but a precise mechanical science, the mastery of which was considered the highest expression of human intellect and the key to understanding our place within the grand cyclical drama of the universe. Fast forward 1,000 years, or perhaps 10,000, a team of future archaeologists, perhaps not even human, sifts through the digital and physical rubble of our civilization. In a buried server farm, they recover fragments of our global network, endless terabytes of data containing horoscopes, birth chart calculations, memes about Mercury retrograde, and heated online debates about the validity of astrology. What story would these artifacts tell them about who we were? Our zodiac systems, ubiquitous in our culture yet rooted in ancient practice, would act as a peculiar time capsule, a multifaceted key to understanding the early 21st century human psyche. The first layer they would uncover is our deep, enduring hunger for narrative and meaning. Amidst the cold, hard data of our scientific age, the medical journals, the physics equations, the financial reports, they would find this parallel universe of symbolism, a testament to a species that, despite its technological prowess, never lost its desire to see its own life reflected in a grand cosmic story. The sheer volume of this data, the fact that millions of people daily consulted these celestial patterns for guidance on love, career, and personal growth, would reveal a profound and universal anxiety about the future and a longing for control in an increasingly complex and unpredictable world. They would likely misinterpret much of it at first, perhaps conflating our astrological apps with our scientific astronomical software. Imagine their confusion upon finding an application that calculates the precise position of Jupiter down to the arcsecond at the moment of a user's birth, stored right alongside an interpretation of that position as meaning the individual is prone to optimism or expansion. The line between our empirical science and our metaphysical searching would appear blurry, suggesting a culture that held both in a strange, simultaneous embrace. A future scholar might theorize that Capricorn season was a period of mandatory societal restructuring, or that the phrase Mercury is in retrograde referred to a known technological malfunction of early communication satellites, given its association in our data with messages gone awry and travel delays. The personalization of it all would be particularly fascinating to them. The fact that we didn't just have a zodiac, but that each person had their own unique celestial map based on their time and place of birth, would speak volumes about our intensely individualistic culture, our focus on the self and its unique journey and potential. Beyond the potential misinterpretations, however, they would uncover enduring truths about the human condition that transcend millennia. They would see that we, like the Babylonians in their ziggurats and the Maya in their observatories, were still pattern-seeking creatures. We were still using the same 12 archetypes, the hero, the nurturer, the sage, the rebel, to frame our understanding of human personality and motivation. The persistence of these symbols would show them that certain fundamental questions never change. Who am I? Why do I behave this way? What is my purpose? Our zodiac would reveal our continued fascination with cycles and timing, our innate need to break down the relentless linear flow of time into manageable, meaningful units with distinct qualities, be it the energetic initiation of an Aries new moon or the reflective release of a Pisces full moon. This would paint a picture of a species that intuitively understood life not as a straight line, but as a spiral, always returning to similar themes but at different levels of experience. Perhaps the most significant revelation for these future excavators of our culture would be the zodiac's role as a social and communal glue. They would find evidence of how these symbols created instant tribes and identities. The phrase, "I'm a Leo," or typical Gemini behavior, served as social shorthand, a way to forge connections and explain interpersonal dynamics. The memes, the popular astrology columns, the shared language of the signs, all of it would point to a deep human need for belonging and for a shared symbolic language to navigate the complexities of relationships. In a world they might perceive as increasingly digital and disconnected, our reliance on these ancient archetypes would highlight a fundamental irony. We used cutting-edge technology to access and share some of the oldest stories we've ever told about ourselves. The ultimate truth they might distill from our zodiac time capsule is that no matter how advanced our tools become, the human heart remains a timeless mystery, forever looking to the stars not just for answers, but for a reflection of its own boundless, beautiful complexity. Silk, spices, and precious gems were not the only treasures flowing along the intricate network of routes we now call the Silk Road. Caravans winding their way through deserts and over mountain passes carried something far more elusive and transformative: ideas. Among the most enduring of these intellectual exports was the symbolism of the zodiac, which embarked on a centuries-long journey from the observatories of Babylon to the farthest reaches of Asia, morphing and adapting with every culture it touched. This was not a simple case of one civilization copying another. It was a continuous, creative conversation across continents, where each society listened to the celestial stories of its neighbors and then retold them in its own voice, using its own myths and metaphors. The transmission likely began in earnest after the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century B.C.E., which created a vast Hellenistic world stretching from the Mediterranean to the edges of India. Greek colonists, soldiers, and merchants brought with them the systematized Babylonian zodiac, which had already been infused with their own rich pantheon of gods and heroes. In bustling trade hubs like Alexandria, this knowledge mingled with Egyptian and Persian astronomy, but the journey eastward truly accelerated under the Kushan Empire, a powerful realm that controlled crucial Central Asian trade routes in the 1st century C.E. The Kushans, with their capital at Purusharapura in modern-day Pakistan, were cultural magpies, brilliantly synthesizing Greek, Persian, Indian, and Chinese influences into a unique cosmopolitan identity. Their coinage is a perfect snapshot of this fusion, minted with bilingual inscriptions and depicting a dizzying array of deities. On one side, you might find the Greek hero Heracles, on the other, the Buddha. Uncritically, they began striking coins with clear images of the 12 Greek zodiac signs, introducing these symbols to the courts and markets of Central Asia. It was here, in the heart of the Kushan Empire, that the zodiac encountered the deeply spiritual world of Indian Buddhism. This meeting produced one of the most breathtaking examples of cultural synthesis, the Buddhist cosmological mandala. In magnificent cave complexes like Dunhuang on the edge of the Gobi Desert, artists began painting elaborate murals that merged Buddhist iconography with celestial maps. At the center would sit a serene Buddha, often surrounded by planetary deities adopted from Greek and Indian tradition. Encircling this central figure was a ring containing the 12 zodiac signs, depicted almost identically to their Greek counterparts: a bull for Taurus, a pair of twins for Gemini, a lion for Leo. Yet their meaning was completely transformed. In this new context, the zodiac was no longer primarily about forecasting individual fate. It became a representation of the endless cycle of samsara, the wheel of rebirth and suffering that the Buddha's teachings sought to transcend. The 12 signs marked the relentless turning of this wheel, a cosmic backdrop to the path toward enlightenment. The very animals themselves were reinterpreted through a Buddhist lens, their characteristics seen as metaphors for different aspects of the spiritual journey or past lives of the Buddha. Meanwhile, the same symbols were traveling further east into China, where they faced a sophisticated astronomical tradition that was already thousands of years old. The Chinese had their own system of 28 lunar mansions and the 12-year animal cycle. Initially, the foreign 12-sign zodiac was viewed with curiosity but seen as separate. However, during the Tang dynasty, a period of incredible openness to foreign ideas, the two systems began a fascinating dialogue. Chinese astronomers and astrologers started to incorporate the Greco-Babylonian signs into their existing framework, not as a replacement but as an additional layer of meaning. A tomb from the Tang era might feature a ceiling painted with both the 28 Chinese mansions and the 12 Western signs, a celestial fusion guarding the deceased in the afterlife. The symbols themselves underwent a subtle syncretization. The constellation we know as Gemini, the twins, was sometimes depicted not as Castor and Pollux, but as the twin spirits of Yin and Yang, the fundamental principle of dualistic cosmic forces. Libra, the scales, resonated deeply with the Chinese concept of cosmic balance and justice, while Scorpio found a parallel in the powerful, transformative symbolism of the Zizhai, a mythical creature of judgment. This eastward flow of ideas was not a one-way street. While the Western zodiac was traveling to Asia, elements of the Chinese system began to trickle back west. The concept of the 12-year animal cycle, so distinct from the solar-based Mediterranean zodiac, fascinated European scholars when it eventually reached them through accounts by medieval travelers like Marco Polo. This cross-pollination reveals the Silk Road as a vast intellectual exchange, not a simple pipeline. The journey of these symbols was fraught with creative misunderstanding and adaptation. A sign might lose its original mythological story but retain its core symbolic energy, which was then plugged into a new cultural narrative that needed a symbol for that particular energy. The Lion of Leo, for instance, shed its association with the Nemean lion slain by Hercules, and instead came to symbolize the fearless roar of the Buddha's teachings in Central Asia, or the imperial power of the Chinese emperor. The Virgin of Virgo could be linked to goddesses of fertility or purity in different regions. Each culture acted as a translator, not just of language but of cosmic meaning, ensuring that the ancient language of the stars remained a living, evolving force, connecting humanity across vast distances through a shared, though wonderfully diverse, gaze at the heavens. This remarkable convergence of zodiac symbols across the globe, from the Babylonian lion to the Maya jaguar, presents one of history's most captivating puzzles. How did cultures separated by vast oceans and millennia develop such strikingly similar celestial maps, often featuring the same archetypal characters: the hero, the virgin, the serpent, the twins? Scholars have long debated three compelling possibilities, each revealing a different facet of the human experience. The first theory suggests a deep, shared psychological framework within humanity itself. The pioneering psychologist Carl Jung proposed the concept of the collective unconscious, a reservoir of universal, archaic symbols and patterns inherent to all human minds. According to this view, we didn't invent these stories, we discovered them within ourselves and then projected them onto the starry canvas. A lion is not just an animal but a cross-cultural symbol of raw power, courage, and royalty. A serpent universally represents duality, healing and poison, wisdom and temptation, death and rebirth. When isolated cultures gazed at the same bright clusters of stars, their shared psychic architecture naturally conjured similar potent images, explaining why the scorpion appears in both Mesopotamian and Mesoamerican traditions without any need for physical contact. The stars provided a neutral screen for humanity's innermost archetypes to play out in spectacular fashion. A second, more tangible theory argues for ancient transoceanic contact and cultural exchange long before our history books suggest. The possibility that seafaring Phoenicians, adventurous Polynesians, or other lost explorers might have carried celestial knowledge across the world is tantalizing. Proponents of this view point to the not-so-coincidental timing of certain astronomical developments. The precise division of the ecliptic into 12 equal parts appears in both Babylon and, later, in India and Greece, suggesting a transfer of knowledge along trade routes. The similarities between the Mayan emphasis on Venus cycles and the reverence for Venus in Old World cultures is often cited as potential evidence of a shared, albeit lost, thread of connection. While definitive proof remains elusive, the idea of a primordial global network exchanging ideas about the heavens captures our imagination, suggesting a forgotten chapter of human history where knowledge flowed as freely as goods across continents, weaving a single celestial story across the planet. Yet a third compelling explanation is independent discovery driven by universal human needs. Faced with the same practical challenges of survival, isolated cultures arrived at similar solutions, including using the stars to mark time. Agriculture demands a reliable calendar. Whether you are a Babylonian priest predicting the flooding of the Euphrates or a Maya farmer awaiting the rains, tracking the sun's path against the stars is the most accurate clock available. The human brain is a pattern-seeking engine, and the same cognitive processes that connect dots to form a bull in one hemisphere will likely form a similar large, horned creature in another. The specific animals chosen were often the most significant or formidable in that region's ecology. The Taurus bull was central to Mesopotamian agriculture, just as the jaguar was the apex predator of the Mesoamerican rainforest. This theory of convergent cultural evolution suggests that the similarity in zodiacs is not from shared DNA or contact, but from shared circumstances. Different cultures asking the same fundamental questions about time, fate, and their place in the cosmos, independently looked up and found similar answers written in the same stars, a powerful testament to the unity of the human experience in a vast and mysterious universe. From the meticulous star charts of Babylonian priests to the awe-inspiring stone computers of the Maya, our journey through the symbolism of the ancient zodiacs reveals a truth far more profound than mere fortune-telling. We have witnessed how these celestial maps served as the very bedrock of civilization, guiding farmers with the seasons, advising kings with omens, and giving sailors the courage to venture beyond the horizon. They were a universal language, a shared project of humanity to find order in the cosmos and meaning in our own existence. Each culture, from the philosophers of Greece to the mystics of India, looked up at the same star-dusted void and saw a different story reflected back, yet every story was woven from the same fundamental threads of human experience: our fears, our hopes, our struggles, and our endless quest for understanding. What is truly breathtaking is how these ancient mysteries, born in an age without electricity or telescopes, continue to pulse with life in our modern world. We may no longer rely on the heliacal rising of Sirius to predict the flooding of a river, but we still turn to the zodiac to navigate the equally unpredictable waters of our own lives. The archetypes persist because they speak to something timeless within us: the determined resilience of the Taurus bull, the curious intellect of the Gemini twins, the regal presence of the Leo lion. These are not just constellations, they are mirrors held up to the human soul, offering a framework for self-reflection and a sense of connection to a story much larger than ourselves. This enduring fascination is a testament to the genius of our ancestors, who encoded their wisdom into a celestial language so powerful it has weathered millennia, constantly adapting yet forever retaining its core promise: that we are part of a grand, beautiful, and mysterious cosmic design. As we bring this exploration to a close, we are left with a night sky that feels profoundly different, no longer a random scattering of lights, but a vast library of human thought and a canvas of interconnected stories. Every glimmering point now hints at a myth, a mathematical calculation, a spiritual belief, or a daring voyage guided by its steady light. The real mystery is no longer just in the stars themselves, but in our unbreakable ancient bond with them. This conversation between humanity and the cosmos, which began with the first person who ever looked up in wonder, is one that we are all still a part of today. We would love to hear which part of this celestial detective story resonated most with you. Was it the mathematical precision of the Antikythera mechanism, the terrifying allure of the Zodiac Killer's ciphers, or perhaps the profound spiritual map of the Vedic nakshatras? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the wonder of these ancient mysteries alive. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through time and space.